right, so thank y'all for coming. I'm so happy that you're here and to share this moment with me. I'm happy to be back. I can always count on y'all, so really appreciate it. So I'm going to read a little bit. We'll see how I feel moved. I don't want to depress folks right out the gate, but if I,
don't worry about it.
My I gotta say I'm sorry. I'm in Minnesota. Okay. So I'll start out. I'm not a poet who likes to give a lot of context, but I will say a lot of this deals with chronic illness. So I'll be talking a little bit about that. Then I'll try to move on to some lighter topics. Misdiagnosed. Half naked, cold and bending, I face the skinny glass. Before they come circling the tight and too bright room, I see a girl who isn't me, a girl who shouldn't be, a sack of bones crushing paper sheets to rustling white. A white man in a white coat lifts my crumbling body at the split, his hand barely touching what's left of it. What's to see beyond the jutting ribs like mountains caged beneath my flat and cardboard-colored chest? He doesn't look me in the eye when a few minutes in, the white man in the white coat traumatizes us again. With his diagnosis, he claims there is nothing wrong with me. Contends my ruined body a mere symptom of what's been done to me, of what I've done to me, or what I've done to it, what some would call a sin. I know I can't be both a virgin and a whore. I mean, I barely kissed a boy before. But who will believe me? Even if my sick body doesn't match the sick crime, the white man in the white coat has made up his mind. All that's left is silence and quiet people in the room, holding breath as they stare each other down and assume. But the white coat never looks down, never sees me looking up, as if to God for answers to my agony. My gaze extends beyond the pale and too fluorescent white. My body is a magic trick, disappearing me into the light. How to survive holding your breath. 1. 2011. 90 pounds of skin draped over the bones. An old lover would not recognize the me I see. I do not want these scars or this strange body. I want to wear a red bikini. I want to kiss on my belly. For 21 days, the doctors come in swarms, hanging heads to pins and less speaking. My abdomen a crater sinking, deeper with each labored breath. So many visitors, one could mistake my bed for a box. I can't remember all their names or even all the days it took to get here. But I do remember wearing lipstick when we passed the vomit days. And then there are fuzzy images of my big sister tying big twists in my tangled hair. And now the faint post-op screams from the epidural wearing off too soon. For 9 hours, surgeons cut away my sick parts, 5 hours beyond estimation, and the work remains undone. They explain my insides are too damaged, so they plan to continue the cutting next spring. Nevertheless, I am relieved that the hardest part is over. Being closer to healthy feels right, but somehow still feels strange. Will I ever work the same? Will I ever again undress with pride? My skin forever sticky with adhesive and the color of someone else's mood. I can never truly be naked again. When I finally make it home, I cry at the sight of a tube top purchased the summer before. Staring down at my lifetime Band-Aid, this is what permanency feels like. On the right side of my belly, I carry the burden of desperation, the things we humans do to stay alive. I live in a time warp of constant repair, fixing, never fixed. My body working through the darkness that knows to feel an empty space. What is missing from me turns out to be more than ulcerated innards that span 5 feet. There is a displacement in me, a loss of the one constant my mind and body had for so long understood, a suffering. Though some may think what I mean to say is pain, I'm not sure these two words can translate the same. What I do know is that the first 10 years of my life before being struck ill were filled with indoctrination that said suffering was a badge, an honor for the holy, a road to redemption from sin, a sign of great things to come, even if relief was to happen in the afterlife. Suffering is, then, by this logic, an oddly intimate act of faith, a response to pain. Pain, then, is a source of suffering, a feeling, a lonesome feeling, not an act, but an affliction that when experienced creates an utter confusion of sense. A piercing touch can crumble you. The sound of your own child laughing can make you wince. The sight of blood, the smell of your own can make you puke. The metallic taste of medication can make you want to quit. But the promise of prayer, a response to suffering, can convince you to stay alive despite the pain. But this is all semantics. To be honest, I just don't know what to do in this new body. Shameful to say, there are days I long for my missing pieces. Some nights I want to rip this flimsy shield, separating me from fragility, and beg back the burden. Welcome the suffering, accept the bad seed. Shame can feel stronger than love tries to be. And I'm not sure love will ever be enough to convince me I am worthy of the kind of life I see everyone around me take for granted. My family assures me there are people who would want me even if I am not whole, though I can barely walk well enough to leave the house, let alone be concerned about how undesirable I have become. As I pace my small apartment, half dressed in a sports bra, my family pretends not to notice the scars. My 6-year-old son is afraid of my new figure, confused about what will be my new toilet. He has developed an aversion to small plastic bags. He sees one from a local grocer with old tissues crumpled in the kitchen corner and nervously picks it up when I tell him to toss it in a can. Only my niece is bold enough to ask why my body is different. I answer in truthfulness because children need to understand that people sometimes live with holes inside themselves, real holes, or holes that only they can feel. My nephew calls me an alien, weird, but super cool. I laugh and let my hands tell the story, making gestures with the scientific words. They all gather in a circle and listen. They want to touch me. I let them touch me. Then there is awe and question. Searching for shame in the lines of my face, they find none. They look at their own bellies. The girl excitedly shouts how we are the same. Small brown fingers pointing to tiny nicks in her skin. Mm. Let's talk about love. Love is lying in your mother's lap, sitting between your grandma's knees as she stuffs your too short bang into a pink plastic roller, Love is your big sister teaching you to do your baby hair so you can look like Chili from TLC. Love is crazy, sexy, and cool. Love is learning a recipe for peach cobbler by watching with the only record of instruction being do it to taste. Love is listening, speaking up, shutting the fuck up, even if you're right. Love is warning your little brother not to dance on a bar stool, him doing it anyway, seeing his elbow break the fall, setting his broken bones until mama makes it home from work. Love is fall back and let me catch you, watching your mother dance the Prince all night, gleefully dancing by yourself in the mirror at midnight, naked and alone, running your fingers along full stretches of skin spread across your thighs. Love is growing a stranger inside your body, feeding him the watery milk of your breast with cracked nipples, burning the soft side of your wrist to test the bottle's temp. Love is being hungry and giving your child the last piece. Love is watching old black movies with your son spilling crumbs in the sheets, cackling and giggling. Love is what my father meant to offer when he sang to me as a baby. That's my little cutie pie, and everybody wanna know why she cried. He did it. Love is him meaning to hold on and not let go. Love is knowing when to let go. Love is honoring the living and the dead, giving praise to Black Jesus, even when you are unsure of why, because this makes your family happy, and you less heathen-like. Love is my great-grandmother pointing at my 10-year-old body, demanding, if a man ever touched you there, tell me. Signaling, because there are no words for some things, or at least there shouldn't be. There is no word for like in some languages, only love. And love is not the opposite of hate. Love is not having to compromise and compromising anyway. Being terrified and doing it anyway. Sometimes, love is not the showing up, it is the staying. Kissing the scar formed from a wound you didn't heal or create. Love is watching a lover's hip become a hill to climb, the smell of an exhale after a kiss. Love is singing along to Sweetest Taboo, staring eye to eye after the rain, wondering why the rain keeps the grass growing, why the grass keeps the bugs fed, why bugs keep the birds full. The way the birds remind us to wake up, to look up, is a kind of love. Love is a choice and a destiny, instinctive and insane, humble and courageous of body and mind. Love is the closest thing to travel in time. I'm going to do one more before I start chatting. And I'm going to read this because I wrote it here in Minnesota on the spot. That was the assignment. Where the hell is it? That's what these little tabs are for, but then I didn't put the page numbers. It's called Blue Magic. I know that much.
It's on 53.
Thank you. All right, Blue Magic. This is Silver Lake, St. Anthony, Minnesota. If I stare long enough, anything can look like home. A drooping tree can be my grandmother's green drapes, the thick, heavy ones, popular in the 70s. The poplar tree can be the thing that stole away my granddaddy and that house he never built. A blade of grass, the butcher knife, used for family dinners. A twig, the wooden handle pressing splinters into palm. Scratching squirrels, the bent fingers of my sister's hand, oiling my dry scalp. The mud, blue magic. Weeds, the rat tail end of a comb, sparrows, neighbor kids tapping pebbles on the glass, asking in a high-pitched whisper, Can y'all come out and play? Crows, their raucous parents, who fight every other day, while ants play the part of kitchen roaches, scattering beneath my feet. As I stand at the pond's edge, a crawling breeze becomes the hemline of my mother's dress, sweeping a fragrance of gentleness. If tenderness could have a smell, it would be sweet as the pinkish wet of sliced watermelon before drying to a drip at my elbow's tip, sweet as the blue bottom of a firecracker popsicle inking the center of my pink tongue. If I stand still long enough, I can feel the sun of my youth, like the warmth of a gas bill paid on a Midwest winter's day. But today, I welcome summer shade in a world of new surrounding blue, as if this is a place where I belong. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, look around. All the people came. Thank you for sharing from this gorgeous new book. I have lots of questions about it, but I thought maybe you could start with talking about how you organized it. It sounds boring, but as a writer, it's something I really want to know about. There's lots of things going on here. There's lots of forms at play. We got some guzzle, we got an ode, we got an episodarian, we got some great forms. And there seems like it's broken into sections. I just wondered how you found your way to structure.
So it took a long time, and it's a few reasons why. One, I want to have a running thread, and so the kind of illness poems that I start out with are, to me, the kind of theme running through the book, and so I kind of wanted people to be able to find the other intersections to that, and so it's kind of divvied up, and hopefully you can see that. Also, some practical things. It could be a lot to read really heavy poems, so I tried to, like I hopefully did up here, not burden the reader with too much darkness and despair, but to buffer with some lighter pieces as well. I think, in service to myself and to the reader, but after so long, who even knows anymore? I knew, but now I don't know.
Yeah, like how long did it take to come to life, this iteration of it?
10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it had many different forms before. Can you talk about how you named the book and how you named how you come to naming poems?
Somebody just randomly asked me that around the corner. Said I would have an answer. So I think that I'll say I'm heavily influenced by memoir. I started out, my MFA is in creative nonfiction, actually. And so I think people can tell some of my stuff is very prose, but very influenced by my personal life. And then when you write memoir is always like a slice of somebody's life. It's not the entirety. And so that kind of same idea of this foreverness, but really just a piece of who you are that doesn't say everything, but doesn't take anything away from the whole, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Can you talk about the forms again? I was interested in particular in the erasure poem that's near the front. Particularly excited about the ways that you use the blackness to disrupt the two-word phrase, your skin to your kin. And I wonder, just in general, if you, like how you came to that form, how you come to the, the experimental stuff you're doing. I wanted you to talk about this.
Yeah. So this is, if you don't have the book, you will have the book by then. And so it's, blackout erasure, a lot of people, anybody could try it, right? And so I was explaining to somebody earlier, it's kind of, the idea is how do you make an old thing new and how do you make it yours? And so this erasure is from the Mayo Clinic. And so if you I ever diagnose this stuff, you know, you get like this information packet, very sterile and reporter type. And so it's an overview of Crohn's disease, which is what I've had since I was 11. And I write about that a lot. And so I took it and played with the idea of family history because that's kind of the first thing you give when you go to the hospital. It also goes to some of these other things, like the first poem, which is about recessive genes and kind of like what comes out of your family. So it deals with a lot of that. So how do I take this, and then with the kin, taking skin and doing kin, then goes back to the idea of family history. And so making it mine, making it part of my narrative, something that was given to me and was told to me, I get to make my own. So it's kind of an objective.
And forgive me if I'm reading into it in a way that doesn't make sense, but it also made me think about the ways that Black lineage and Black history, our relationship to legacy is often like obscured to us or blocked out. So sometimes you have to like read through all of it in order to see the story, you know, what is really about us, if that makes sense. I think maybe it's a
That
story.
sounds great.
Awesome. Use that if you want. Can you also, so there's other through lines that have to do with faith, have to do with relationship with the church, has to do with like the way that God deals with us or destines us. So I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit. And I also wondered about the way that writing is such a like intellectual activity, and it's like not very much embodied. And this book really feels like it has a body and fleshy because of its focus on illness, but also childbirth and motherhood and all that stuff too. So I wonder about if you could talk about either of those things.
So like how it doesn't sound over intellectualized.
I mean, I think it's very intellectual, but I mean, it's not just like stuck in the head. Like it feels fleshy. It feels like it's got a body. Sorry. Answer whatever you want.
Well, I think it's a process, and I've talked about this before, where you start at the heart, you start at the core, and a lot of people are like, oh, poetry, hey, back there, I see you. Poetry is, people say therapeutic, right? And I always say go to therapy. But it's cathartic, you know? And the difference is like, how can you be messy and like terrible and heartbroken and just battered and take that and do the work of an artist and a poet, not leave it there, right? And so I don't leave it in the messy place, but I don't want to clean it up so much that it sounds sterile. And so that's just a balance that people have to figure out for themselves. And for me, it's allowing like the honesty of the experience, but also the craft of the work, and that gives a good honest balance of like, I'm not just here to throw stuff and shock people, but I'm actually doing work, and this work is related to these very important things that I may be experiencing or you may be experiencing. It's not always me. Some of the stuff is not about me, but people think it is. So, you know.
Yeah, is there persona in here? Like, how are you thinking about the voice shifting?
There's definitely some persona. I haven't read, you know, maybe I'll do a couple lines or something. So some people inspire me a lot. So you'll hear voices in the pieces, whether you hear me or you read it. One of them is actually my grandmother. And I use her initials, so it's a poem called BJ Ruminates. And when I read it in her voice. I read it, she was at my last reading. She approved. And so these kind of voices of elders or communities or stories are super important. And so I kind of take that on in the book so that I could get across these kind of political, historical messages that I've learned, but I can't speak them in that way. So I have to use the voice of those experiences and handle it with care. So.
Yeah, there are definitely times when we're in somebody's, living room looking out the front windows. I wonder if you want to talk about, there's a bunch of references in the text, like we get Luther, we get TLC, we get Coco Taylor, we get, but I wonder, particularly if you want to talk about Lucille Clifton and your relationship with her work, how did her work find you? There's so many, anyway, so many moments where
Yeah, I wonder if I could find this Lucille Clifton. That's a super short life of Lucille Clifton. And if you don't know Lucille Clifton,
you better find out.
This is terrible, right? Who has the book?
I have the page number, I think.
It's called Reading
77. I think.
Reading Adam Thinking, by Lucille Clifton. So her name is actually in here. And I could just read it because it's like 4 lines. But my relationship with Lucille Clifton is she was one of the poets I was drawn to the most. It's very terse, but it hits you. And she could write like 2 lines and just sum up an experience, and it's amazing to me. And I think that's the art of a poet, like the economy of words that you have. So this is called Reading Adam Thinking by Lucille Clifton, and so that essentially it's kind of an after poem, but not really. So I was reading the poem titled Adam Thinking, and then this is how I'm engaging with Lucille Clifton's work. What if we got it all wrong? What if all this time Eve was alone and Adam had always been the devil? What if Eve was the one who said no? Why would we trust the word of a snake? That's what Lucille Clifton said. So that's my answer.
It made me go back to Eve Talking, which is the other of those 2 poems together. Adam Talking, Eve Talking, and it ends with, and she whispered into his mouth their names or something like that. That was such a power. She does have the zinger lines.
Yeah,
Like,
I think she's Adam. Does he say, "I'd rather have been born," like essentially than created? So it's just these little lines that make you think so deeply about like existence and "Won't You Celebrate with Me" is my favorite one. "Starshine and Clay," if you ever see those lines from her, and it's just amazing work, and it's alive. Yeah. So go read her.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure they have some here. Do we have a time? I don't know what time it is.
37.
Okay, we have a couple more minutes before y'all get to ask questions. So think of what questions you
Think
want
of the
to.
questions. Don't have us say, "Do y'all have questions?" And then nobody has questions.
Yeah, this group's gonna have questions. So I kind of breezed past it, but do you want to talk about the church at all? You want to talk about communion wafers and water and like body stuff?
Yeah. So I'm heavily influenced by the church. I am a preacher's daughter, not to put you on the spot, but this is my dad who decided to sit in the front row right in front of me. So. And I love that. He could be here and like support this and not feel like that it's a personal attack, because it's not. But, you get the good and you get the bad. And so the religion can be, as we all know, it can be dangerous. But I feel like your faith is, for me, something different. And that struggle between, doctrine and doctrination and then what you really feel deeply inside of you is something I deal with. But when you put that with being a sick kid, it disrupts everything. And so if you're a kid and you believe in God and then you get struck ill and you're like, wait a minute, something's not right. And so in that journey for me, I didn't actually get mad at the church or my parents. I got mad at God because that's who I really believe. But that taught me that's who I really believe, not necessarily the rest of it. So I basically am showing how somebody has to grapple with that, and that is messy. it's not clean, and everybody has to figure their way through that. And so being a kid, and so some of the poems about being sick are very much dealing with like why.
Yeah.
And then you match that with these kind of overlapping things, like with the first poem, The Misdiagnosed, where you're looking for these answers. And doctors, you're looking for these answers in God. And so I think it's important because we all deal with this, you know. The first thing people do is if you get sick or you're about to die, oh my God, you know, help me. And so what do you say to like innocent children? So it's hard, and that's why it's written in the way that it's written, where it can't really be over intellectualized, and it can't just be in the body, and it can't just be angry at one thing, and it can't blame one thing. And so it's like many things at once. So I will say, so I was talking to somebody recently that I realized being a sick, a chronically ill child was the first wound for me, and it took me a long time to realize that. And so the book kind of mirrors that idea of, you think it's, you know, I grew up, I had a bad job, I had a bad husband, I didn't live in the right place. This, why do I act like this? Why do I think like this? And then you go back to your childhood and you're like, oh, that was the first thing, and that reshaped and rewired me for the rest of my life. And so the way this book is set up is that really is the thread. And if you look, you can see it everywhere.
Yes. I want you to read the whale poem.
Okay.
Can you do that, please?
Yeah.
I was talking to Michael Cleaver-Diggs earlier today about being in the room where it happened when you drafted that poem, and I remember the final line all the time. So please gift us
Yes.
that poem.
Okay. That's one of my favorites, actually. So yeah, I wrote this here. It's in a workshop with Nellie Diaz. And I read it at the end of the workshop. Things to do in the belly of a whale after Dan Albergani. Light a candle. Set it in the hole of a tooth. Lay a feather on the tongue bed. Fill a glass with saliva, for there is no fresh water here. Call the dead for answers. Only they know the way in and out of the belly of a beast. Only they know this is a beast and not a whale. A once man walking the earth until cursed and cast into the sea, becoming a swollen thing with no legs, no arms, no hands to choke me, but a mouth big as a city built for one swallowed whole woman, fooled by the beauty of blue waves crashing against the edge of a sea. Freely, I walked, and to his parted lips, a door welcoming me home. But a house is not a home, and a room is not a house, and a chair is not a room. This is a cage, built with the bones of women before me, their ribs, his ribs, my body to be the jugular notch. The dead don't speak, they answer back, call in the voice of my grandmother midday and say, run, child. But I cannot run, can only hide here in this dark cavity. The creatures outside swim by and say, the way out of the well is forgiveness, that I must offer it in exchange for escape. But the beast never begged, forgive me, and had he, I would have cried, no. So, I stay stuck in his belly until I kick the candle over and make a hell of everything inside.
So I wonder if y'all have questions, because you were asked to make sure you have questions. You have one.
I have one.
You shared with us.
Yeah, so I love hearing your poetry read out loud. And you talk about that process, what it was like to create that.
It's very different than this.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard, y'all. You think you go get up in the studio. Hey, you be in the studio. That's my child over there. That's my child over there. Oh, y'all gonna take pictures with me this time. So I'm sorry. I'm trying to be serious. So, the audiobook is very much a production, and there's no audience. So it is harder, but it came out really good. They were like, "This is great." So so now I can put that on my credit. But I think it would be helpful for people who don't read poetry on the page a lot to listen to it and kind of get the pace and the meter. But thanks for bringing that up. This is out there.
Other questions? Who has the next one? Sherry.
Congratulations, April. This
Thank
is
you.
beautiful. Okay, so I think from the first day I met you, I was like, this is a proud Black woman right here. And so when I got the book, I was just flipping through, and of course, the first thing I came to was, Dare Everybody Who Ain't a Black Woman?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you want to talk about that, and specifically the emotion that you were experiencing, because we went on a ride. So just want to see if you want to talk about the emotion behind that, if you want to read it.
So that's part of a section called, is that in the Black Woman Press Conference? Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a section called the Black Woman Press Conference, which was almost the name of this book, and somebody's like, ain't nobody gonna buy this book. Name of that. So, but it's in there, and it was also like my one woman play that I did at the Guthrie down the street. Y'all missed out. It was fun. It was super fun, and that was definitely. I'm gonna say this much, Sherry. Even though it was at a time where you had a lot of these events of like police killings, all these different stuff, a lot of juxtaposed with like Black Girl Magic and all that. I just want to say this because I read this somewhere and somebody's like, oh, that feels like when all that stuff was going on. And I was like, oh, this shit's still going on. And so it was this moment where people feel like an experience could be encapsulated in this one time that you paid attention to it, but it didn't start there and it didn't end. So I just want to put that out there. Don't be saying that, people. But the energy behind that was like, I was sick of it. I was sick of everybody speaking for and about, and I'm like, I'm talking to you. If you hear, I'm talking to you. I want my podium. I'm up here. I'm talking to who needs to be talked to, and everybody else needs to just listen. And that was the energy behind that. That's on page 90. So y'all can mark that down. Oh, here. Oh no, you know what? It's Lucille Clifton line. I'm just gonna read them first 4 lines to show you the allusion to Lucille Clifton and how much she influences me. Sorry for the microphone. Dear everybody who ain't a Black woman, we ain't going nowhere. We cannot be wished away or washed away or replaced. We are the mold and the model, the starshine and the clay. So the starshine and clay is the Lucille Clifton line. So she's there. I'll leave the rest for y'all too.
It's a great one. Who else has a question?
You want to be honest? I have my serious and my unserious responses. So these two baby adults over here are my children, and so I had to raise them, got to pay bills, got to work, and I'm a sick person. Got to keep myself healthy, and try to date people. It's just so much. So like, then the revisions, then it ain't right. You send this stuff out.
And I'm not saying 10 years from where we are now, but 10 years from when the oldest piece in there. But the more serious question, the more serious answer is, I had to let time pass. And so some things are just not ready. And I didn't feel like it needed to be rushed. So some of these pieces couldn't be written until I became somebody else. And that's okay.
All right. Got time for a question or two? Who has them? Yes.
I have so much to say, because I'm in this unique position where I got to meet your son and your father before seeing you here in the flesh. So it's really good to see you. Thank you for signing my copy of the book. I just really want to say thank you first, because it's really refreshing to discuss this. Someone who has been so familiar with the book to ask such wonderful questions. And it does feel very much like you pour a lot of yourself into it. And two words that both of you said that really stuck out to me. And I wanted to ask you about that contrast. You used the word foreverness, and you used the word fleshy. And that was a good combination. This feels like April's just in the book. And it also felt immediately very Black to me. Your dad brought it to me. He told me to skip to misdiagnosed. But fleshy and foreverness also seems very contrasting in a way where your flesh is very finite, but so many things about poetry and art and lived experience have foreverness. So I was curious about, like, you talk a lot about the literal ailments of your body, but also I know your sons are over there, and there had to be times where your body was very capable to bring new life. How is that contrast for you in the today of things?
It's a fascinating question. So, that's very good.
Yeah, because that's also your foreverness.
So the functionality. So, as a woman body, birthing body, you don't have to be well. So, it's that part too, which is also part of what I'm learning. Like, how was I having kids if I was feeling like this? And it's this relationship with suffering, which is intense, more intense and more expected for some bodies over others. And so you learn to live with it, you learn to expect it, and you learn to put everything else before that. So the blessing of birth is not in consideration of the pain of any, if it's not getting in the way of that, you know. And so the actual folks sitting here, you know, that come from me, that's just completely different than the process of having to create them. I don't know. I think it's really an interesting question, and it's also the assumption because people can endure that they should, and I'm learning to push back against that at this nice young age of 40.
Well, I feel like there's also something around, like, being in the moment with chronic illness stuff that's like the new normal is the normal, and you sort of forget, or you like fantasize about the before this time, and then I feel like there are still moments in my adult life where I'm like, oh, I felt like it was normal for me to feel that way all the time, and I can't really exactly remember all of it. It's like it messes with your memory too, the way that it's persistent. And so I think it does have to do with like temporariness and longevity too, like how long we endure. What does that mean for how it feels in the moments that we're like inching through the pain of it, you know?
Yeah, so that's the psyche of it. And so like that, the super long piece I read earlier, that's me trying to figure out, why do I feel this way? And then even when you feel better, why does that not feel right?
Right.
And so it's because you don't know that feeling.
And so if you spend your entire life in what other people would struggle and suffer and die trying to deal with, and then it's gone. And it's like, but that's who I am. And you think you're going to be like, oh, this is so wonderful. It's just foreign to me. I didn't understand. I'm like, oh, I thought my stomach was supposed to hurt every time I ate, you know. And I didn't want that when it was happening.
Right.
It's the temporary.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. And then you think and you say, well, what did that even feel like? Do I remember what that felt like? It is really a psychological, it's just a mind. It really is. And so it makes you understand though why people make certain choices, why people can endure things, and then even when you become better, why you're not better.
Right.
And so you got to deal with the psychology of it to really be well. So not just the flesh and the finiteness of your body, but that mind, your soul, your spirit has to heal too.
Okay, more questions? Great.
So you said earlier that sometimes people assume a poem is about you when it's about someone else.
Yeah.
My question is not to say the name of the poem, but I'm curious if there is a particular poem that is consistently confused to be about you, or there are a variety of poems, or there's just one that keeps coming out. You're like, no, that's
I
not
don't
me.
know if it's one. I think that people just assume anytime you write about yourself that much that everything is about you, and even more deeply that you still are that person and feel that way. I do not feel the way that the voice and the speaker in most of these poems feel. I actually feel like she is a different person from me. I feel very sorry for her. And so that's a weird experience, but that's how I got away from it. I'm like, oh, that poor girl. My gosh, I went through so much. And so, but there is a piece that I don't even know if anybody's read. It's about my mother as a girl, and I think people just brush over it and think that it's me. And I just didn't want to say it was her because it's not really my story, but I felt like it was a story that needed to be in there, so it's almost masked as if it's mine. But yeah, people just think everything you write is, you know that. They think everything is about you.
Also, I mean, the fact that it's a story that resonated with you and that you want to tell, it's also your story. You know what I mean? It's one of the stories that
I mean,
You
they think you experience it,
Right,
I
yeah,
guess.
that's true. Okay, do you have one question?
Yeah. I'm Greg's friend, so he invited me. And he told me, he's like, yeah, my mom is writing this book about, like, this poetry book, and she has Crohn's. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, I have Crohn's, and I love poetry. So I thought that was a really cool connection. But you said that you were diagnosed with Crohn's disease when you were around 11. So what was it like for you in the past 10 years of, like, collecting this body of work to reflect on your experiences and your diagnosis as a child? Because you only lived a decade of your life. I call it BC before Crohn's.
Right.
So
So
what
you're
was
gonna
that like?
remember 5 years, you know.
Right,
like a
exactly.
baby.
So what was that like to reflect on it as like a grown
It
woman?
was actually sad. Not for me. I was mourning like that child, and so it was like you talk about the memory. It was. I'm starting to remember a lot of stuff that happened in my life that I couldn't remember before, and I figured out that that's because I was traumatized. And so you can't, when you're traumatized, it's just like, I don't even know what that is. That never happened. So now that I'm older and better and like know myself more and like can breathe and not just like, you know, just super poor and, you know, all that stuff, like struggle bus, just like I can finally stop and say, something happened to me. And that experience on the page is one thing, but also as a person, it's a lot. It's just super intense. And so I've been remembering myself and trying to work that out on the page. So like that's why I say it feels like a different person. I don't really know who that is, and so the work allowed me to enter into memory in a way that worked for poetry, but also worked for me better understanding what happened to me. I don't know if that makes sense. Start talking about memory stuff, it gets weird, but yeah, that's what's going on.
I don't know what time it is, but
One more question.
yeah, let's do one more question. Who's got it? See?
Somebody got a juicy question in the back.
Just wanted to talk about something you said earlier about not rushing the project, letting it take its time,
Mm-hmm.
and this push to just always be productive in writing, producing, whatever. And on the other hand, just dealing with chronic illness and not always having energy or anything like that for your body. How did you balance that push to, I need to be writing something soon, my body can't do it right now, so this work needs to come out when it comes out? What was that like?
Well, I would give myself certain time. So like, I'm gonna go to a workshop, I'm gonna go do a fellowship, and like, I know I can't juggle all that stuff all the time. When my kids were small, I really like 4 o'clock in the morning, but then I got older and I gotta go to bed. So, so that didn't work. So like, just having special moments where I could really get into it. But if I'm tired, I'm tired. And I used to grind myself, which I think just made it worse. And then I got a certain age and I was like, I don't care. So I'm actually happy doing this now and not as a thirsty 25-year-old. So like, where I'm like, yeah, whatever, yes to everything. Y'all ain't gotta say yes to everything either when you do book stuff. I'm just saying, you have choices. So, so trying to just push and pull with what life needed from me, what I could give it. But always coming back to writing and art, because if you're a writer, that's just what you do. And so if you're sick, if you're tired, if you're joyful, what is the one thing you cannot do? And I had to write. Now, I ain't one of those people that are like, I get up at 4 in the morning and I'm running and then I'm writing. Like, I don't do that. I'm super inconsistent about most things. I'm just putting it out there. So, and I'm okay with that. But it works in the way that it needs to work for me. And it's there waiting on me. And then sometimes I meet up with it. And that's it.
All right, that's our time.
All right.
Do you have anything to say to us? There are books for sale.
Buy some books for y'all's friends.
Yeah.
All
We'll
of
sign
that.
them. I'll sign
I'm
mine.
gonna
I'm not signing your book, but I'll sign it. We'll see you over there. Bye bye.
Thank you.